Hello, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Tom Collihue, and you can watch us today both on Twitch and on YouTube for at least the first half of this show. This will be a two-part show dedicated to two separate things. Firstly, we will have our usual Smackdown preview. We will, of course, be covering everything going on in Smackdown and the wrestling world at large. A lot of news has, shall we say, broken or at least caused issue and umbrage over the last few days that we will be talking about. But firstly, for the first 45 minutes or so, at least, you get both Twitch and YouTube. And joining me will be someone that I've been working with a lot recently. If you are a PWTorch VIP member, you will be very familiar with my co-host on Nick and Tom's Intercontinental adventure. That is my colleague and let's just say partner in hatred, Nick Barbati. We secretly really don't like each other, but he's available, so we're just going to have to use him. Nick, welcome to the show.
How long were you going to leave me in that waiting room?
Forever.
While I listened to your abuse and your self-aggrandizing and your self-masturbation of an introduction of yourself.
We are now a mature stream, just for anyone who didn't realize.
Tom, this is my debut with you in proper one-on-one fashion. I mean, this is quite good. We did a bit of an orgy before, so this is a traditional one-on-one.
It is, and it's slightly different to what we usually do on this channel, but I'm very, very happy to be doing it. And really, once I've sent out some tweets and got some people drawn in, we'll definitely be broadcasting to an audience which can give us a lot of different questions, a lot of different comments, and ask us how we feel about each individual show. So we've only got 45 minutes. I won't keep you waiting too long. I've got the card ready. Let's talk first and foremost about lower down the card. They haven't announced everything yet. I get that feel. We've got SmackDown coming. This is going out before SmackDown, of course, which happens tonight. I get the feeling we might see, for example, a Jimmy versus Jey Uso match added to the card. Do you expect to see any late additions?
Well, not of that magnitude. I would be surprised to see that. I think we're going to see a lot of the Uso elements to be added to the Universal Championship match. I would not be surprised to see some lower card matches thrown in there. But in general, I think the card is baked, and I also feel like that this is a card we're looking to get past quickly. I think when it was initially adopted the name Wrestlemania Backlash with the addition of the WrestleMania to the preface, there was higher expectations for quality or at least of continuity to WrestleMania. I no longer feel that way. I think if anything, this feels like a glorified Clash of the Champions or like just a specialty Raw or SmackDown from the past. But in general, I think, I think even if anything is added, nothing's going to be game changing in a main event type of level.
I get that, and I completely agree. I talk about the idea of Jimmy and Jey Uso being involved in some competition against each other, but really they're definitely going to factor into the main event. I think we can all be very confident that they will be factoring into the main event, and we'll see them in action. We're getting a brief hello from Ed Fries, who is a moderator over on Twitch, someone who joined us for the NXT watch party earlier this week, his first time on camera with us. So a big thank you to Ed for joining us. And
hi, Ed.
Anyone else who will start to filter in. We'll see some names. We will be taking your questions, but we'll also be trying to stay on course because, God damn it, we can both talk until the end of time. So I do feel, as you say, we're likely to see Jimmy and Jey in action. It's just unlikely that we're going to see them in a match because, especially if they haven't already been announced, they definitely could have a major part to play in that main event. Okay, Nick, let's start with our first confirmed match, and that was one that was confirmed on Raw. Damian Priest versus The Miz in a lumberjack match. Now, we have seen these two encounter each other before, and I think that's a massive understatement because we've seen these two encounter each other a lot before.
Right.
Very, very much, in fact. Just a huge amount. When it comes to this match, which is in some capacity a rematch of WrestleMania's tag team match, who do you think has got the upper hand?
Well, it's hard to say. This feels like it's a feud that's going to go on for 2 more years. So I feel like we're going to see some traded wins along the way. I don't think this is definitive. I think this is, given the fact how WrestleMania ended, this is going to be Miz winning this go around with shenanigans from the lumberjacks and that situation. Probably not a popular opinion, but taking all things into consider, Damian Priest ended Raw with a bit of an upper hand on The Miz. I don't think that they're ready for, there's no logical progression for either of them just yet. And I still think that they are shaking off the the feel of Bad Bunny being with Damian Priest and allowing Priest to begin to have a little bit of his own identity. And there's still more that they can take from Miz and Morrison. I think, WWE seems to have fallen in love with how Morrison has taken Damian Priest's finisher. So I think that we're going to be seeing that still a bit more. And I don't think I actually don't think it's bad news if this feud goes on a little bit long. That's not bad news for Damian Priest. I think there's worse people to be with than The Miz. And I think in general, I think given the lumberjack stipulation, I'm going to go with The Miz. Yeah.
Personally, I am surprised to hear that because, and you raise very good points, so it's very difficult to argue with that, but I believe this is simply the end of the WrestleMania hangover, as it were. That really they felt that WrestleMania was more about getting Bad Bunny over, and this is about getting Damian Priest over, which makes perfect sense from where I'm sitting. But I also kind of get what you're saying. This feud seems eternal. It's been going on since January when Damian Priest made his main roster debut in the Royal Rumble and when, obviously, Bad Bunny was involved. And really, I don't feel it's got Damian Priest over all that much. Mm-hmm. So whether this will be final or not, we'll have to see. A lumberjack match is supposed to be final. Whether it is or not, we can argue till the cows come home. Ed's opinion is that Priest wins as he moves to the US title scene. So Ed is predicting that maybe we'll see Damian Priest taking on Sheamus sooner rather than later.
Totally possible. Listen, I'm not especially you expect to see a lot of heels winning big matches on this card. So yeah, there might be opportunity for some babyface wins. I just don't get the impression yet that Damian Priest will be moving on from this feud. And Tom, I disagree with you. I don't think yes, lumberjack matches have sometimes been used. I think of like the Christmas show that I loved so much. But in general, I think it's, if anything, lumberjack matches have been more often than not treated as pit stops along the way.
I get you. I completely get you. Ed also says a Miz program guarantees in-ring and TV time, and both of those are needed for DP. I apologize for the fact that we refer to him as DP. There are many reasons for that. Our Twitch show is a little bit...
what has strange. This descended into?
To be fair, I thought you would fit in perfectly.
Yes.
I worry that this will never end, to be honest. So I think I'm really willing it to continue and just move on. Bad Bunny got over. They did their job there. He's gone now. So really, Damian Priest needs the rub at this point. And certainly we have a lot of questions as to whether he's getting enough of a rub going forwards. But we are where we are when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. On the side of the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, the Dirty Dogs, a horrible, horrible name, Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode will be defending against the Mysterios, Ray and Dominic. The first time that this team has actually met for the championships 2-on-2, as it were, because last month they ended up in a Four Corners tag team match. Do you think the Mysterios have a chance here?
I think, did you know that they would be the first ever father-son combination to win the tag team championships? Yes, I think they have a chance. I think, yes, that is going to come into fruition. I think that is a strong desire of not only, not even backstage, but that was probably part of a deal along the way that would come to fruition. And I feel like with Rey Mysterio, you're always on borrowed time for an injury or something going wrong. And I think, I actually think this is the scenario to do it in. They're not in front of live people. I think in front of live people, you're still in danger of Dominic having a backlash against him. Rey, for as beloved as he is, has also been prone to boos at some times, key times, that I think would make him vulnerable. There's something unlikable about a father and son combination that oddly get along and have a wonderful relationship. How dare they? How very dare they? Especially when it's the son of Eddie Guerrero. But I do think that this is in a lane where nothing ever seems to matter, which is the tag team world of the WWE. I think that they'll make something out of something that really ultimately doesn't matter a whole lot, which is this history-making championship win. Aside from that, I think you look at the other card, and I don't see any other championships changing hands, which is why I see the Mysterios winning, to actually give the card some definition.
I get what you're saying there, and I think that's something that needs to be factored in, the idea of the balance of heel face wins, a balance of some sort of something coming out of this show that actually makes it memorable, because that's the worry when it comes to a show like this, that we're just not going to have anything memorable actually happen. I think the Mysterios winning the championships would be perfect for that. You say there's something unlikable about a father-son duo that gets along. I think that's just our training as wrestling fans. Mm-hmm. Our training, especially if we just watch WWE and we're used to those blinkers, is that this tag team will break up and then feud. That's what we're trained to say. That's what the New Day was supposed to do in the eyes of many fans. That's what the Usos are supposed to do in the eyes of many fans. That's what everything is supposed to happen in that way. And we've just seen it with Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin, for example. They've just been broken up. They've had their feud. They'll probably go way down the card now. So I think there's a bit of an expectation there. My opinion is still that at some point in contract negotiations, Rey Mysterio said to the WWE, you need to push my son. And this is the perfect moment to do it. They have had interviews previously where Rey Mysterio has said that Dominic did need to talk him into continuing to wrestle because he was considering hanging it up. There was a promo backstage, I think about a year ago now, where Rey was talking about hanging it up because he couldn't pick up the wins, and Dominic talked him into it. That was the art imitating life moment because Dominic wants that match alongside his father. He's had several now. And I do think a championship reign is coming. In addition to that reason, I also think this has a lot to do with the Usos coming back and an impending title reign for them. I think it's better for them if they don't win it from their dirty dogs.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Makes good sense.
The next match up is one featuring some real favorites of yours. Just before I actually get to that, I have to say a quick thank you. Michael Latina is here and he has just subscribed for his 3rd month with Amazon Prime. Thank you very much for the subscription, Michael. That is money in the show's pocket. Helps me make sure that we're getting guests, helps me boost up the rankings, and helps me pay my rent. So a big thank you to you. Welcome to the show. If you are watching, by all means, ask whatever questions you want. Jump in, say whatever you would like. We want your opinions. We want your questions. We want everything you've got. Thank you very much, Michael, for jumping in with that one. And of course, if this is your first time meeting Nick, ask him some really strange shit.
Like my skincare routine, my, anything you got.
That's where you went.
Yeah, of course. Anyway. I'm looking at I'm like, my skin looks beautiful, Tom. This is what the people want. The people love this.
Oh, this is what happens when you work with actors. Egos everywhere. Egos everywhere. The next match will be for the Raw Women's Championship and will feature the current champion and your favorite, Rhea Ripley, taking on Asuka and your even more favorite, Charlotte Flair. Nick, break down this match for me.
Rhea Ripley is not a favorite.
He loves her. Loves her.
So here is the story. The women's division of Raw is so severely damaged at this point that unfortunately you have 3 of the very best women of the entire roster who suddenly don't seem interesting in this match. Nothing about this seems fresh, interesting, moving forward. It is not the time to take the championship off of Ripley way too soon and would be damaging in the long run to her. Yet it's also, not the time for Charlotte Flair to absorb a high profile loss either, given that even though there doesn't seem to be, I don't feel like a whole lot of intention beyond her other than keep her protected, keep her important. Nothing, no plan attached to that. I think what we're going to see is Asuka absorb a loss, which would, I don't think, come as a surprise to anybody. Yeah. And maybe be filtered out for a larger Flair and Ripley feud, I should say, or something else involving this. All of this could ultimately just be about Alexa Bliss, though, too, who seems to be the darling of the moment for WWE Creative. I mean, there's a lot going on, seemingly, with the Bray Wyatt situation, knowing really what that's about, but knowing, obviously, that Alexa Bliss is absorbing it, or I should say inheriting the mystique and the interest with that. So I do think no matter what, Ripley ends up with her championship with a pretty solid win that I would say there. But I also think that you're going to see Alexa Bliss in some kind of way. And I have a theory about the doll. Dana Brooke. She started to put pink in her hair.
That's your whole argument is based on someone putting pink in their hair. Yeah. If that turns out right, I mean, you got Sonya Deville, right? So
I'm telling you, I'm not kidding. I'm telling you, I think that that's if you look at the hair of the doll, it matches the hair of Dana Brooke.
I will look into that because that certainly is something of interest. We have just also gone live on Periscope, added a few new eyes. If this is your first time watching, we are available on both YouTube and Twitch. I will be having a second part of this show on Twitch where we talk about rumors of Bray Wyatt, Zelina Vega, and so on and so forth. But at the moment, we are previewing WrestleMania Backlash. My opinion when it comes to the Raw Women's Championship, we will get to those comments, don't you worry, is that Rhea is still in the point where she is being established in front of the main roster crowd. For me, this will be a big win for her. And yes, whoever takes the pin, Alexa Bliss for me will be involved and will be coming after them. My initial theory was that it would be Asuka, but it looks at this point like it might be Charlotte Flair. How the doll is involved, I don't know. As far as I believe, the doll will simply be the alter ego that we've seen before against Asuka many moons ago, just before the Royal Rumble. But we'll have to wait and see as regards that.
My theory.
Okay, quickly, because I'm going to jump into
I know. Well, listen, you know how I am.
I know how you are.
Treat me like a guest. I still think Alexa Bliss's height and her overall stature is prohibitive of her being in the ring with some of these larger women. I think that there will be a body that will be used per the doll. I think could be a Dana Brooke.
Ed says, a title has changed in a Backlash show ever since Jinder Mahal was champion, which he felt the need to point out that one. You are a crazy man. Ed also says, Nick, why do you choose to work with Tom on a weekly basis? So this will be the first of many. Fuck you, Ed.
Ed, I enjoy you. I would like to do lunch with you. I think that you seem very interesting and thoughtful and handsome. Tom, we got hired for this job. And, there's always a Jeff Hardy to a Matt Hardy. And one Phoenix always rises. And I think we know who the Jeff Hardy is.
I feel bad for you. That's all I'm saying.
Why?
Because Matt Hardy is the one who broke his brother in half of a chair. And I'd rather be the Matt, to be completely honest.
Okay.
Certainly now. Noob & Co says, I pretty much blame Sasha and Bailey for ruining the Raw Women's division.
Oh, why is that?
I think that's a rough call.
Why are they because they were so good? Is that why on SmackDown and it shames them? Is that what he means?
Noob is a big fan of Asuka, and I feel he's probably concerned with that. He may follow on a little bit later. Let me just scroll down. He does not. But Michael is also questioning, why blame Sasha and Bailey? That's funny. They did sort of run out of challenges in the summer on the Raw side, so they used Sasha and Bailey, but what was the alternative? They still don't really have anyone. Random also says, I find this match kind of predictable. Rhea win, Asuka takes the pin. WWE needs to give a new woman a push, maybe Santana or Vanessa, or if the rumors are true, Zelina Vega. I think Zelina Vega could be another shout, but she's already had a push, and I don't think the WWE, if she comes back, I will talk on that later, will completely trust her from the off. Also, Santana Garrett and Vanessa Bourne have not featured on Raw at all, despite us being told several times that they have been called up. So I don't think there's any chance they get the shout there. I don't think there's any chance at all. Who would you have taking on the champion Rhea Ripley after this match?
Oh, Dakota Kai.
Cool. That's great. Let's do that. Let's do that. Dakota Kai's the right call. You heard it here first. We'll move on now.
I think it's, I actually don't have an answer. I mean, I don't want to just be one of those people that always just picks a name or whatever. Like, I think I think there's an excitement and unpredictability, and there's also a revelation of messiness and unpredictability. I think that there is just so little planning when it comes to this division. I still don't think we're going to be swapped out of the players that we are currently seeing on a week-to-week basis. I think that that's actually where it is. But I do think, as much as it is time to start infusing more people from NXT, like a Dakota Kai, to Tom's point, I'm a fan. It's you have to first define Ripley. You have to do that first. That has to be the priority. There has to be something there. And we're not there yet. We're getting there, but we're not there yet.
I would agree with that. A couple of comments as regards your theory. Noob & Co just doesn't seem that happy with the idea of Dana Brooke.
That's okay. I'm not happy with him either.
Sasha Banks and Bailey. Ed is laughing at the fact that you like working with me. How dare he? And also I want to say a big hello to Manny, who's just dropped in. Ed is suggesting, what about Mandy Rose or Io Shirai? Michael is also suggesting Io Shirai. And if I go down one comment, Manny is a big Eva Marie fan.
Me too.
So I'm guessing he may be suggesting that Eva Marie could get the shout against Rhea Ripley. What do you think of the idea of Io Shirai coming up and taking on Rhea Ripley?
Too soon. If she comes up, she should go on SmackDown, where if there is more definition in some of the players. Even though Bianca Belair has been there for a relatively short period of time, her character's developed. We know who she is for the most part. That would be where Io Shirai goes. She'll get eaten up on Raw against Rhea Ripley trying to find her voice. I mean, I think Io Shirai is my favorite women's wrestler right now, aside from Charlotte. But if she comes up, SmackDown's the place.
Newbie saying Charlotte Flair's most likely going to be Alexa's target. I think we might see Charlotte and Alexa Bliss, and I hate to see it, a cinematic match, maybe a Firefly Playground match. I don't see that. I think the cinematic age is essentially done at this point. I'll leave that on so that you can keep an eye on it as well, Nick. I think the cinematic age is pretty much done at this point. There are so many questions as regards what happened previously, but we haven't seen one since the Swamp fight. Do you believe we're going to see more cinematic matches?
No. I think they're at a point where they're probably more trouble than they're worth in terms of the feedback that they get, the interest that they get, and also just knowing that other groups like AEW are doing cinematic matches. That's enough probably to turn WWE off and a little away from them for the time being.
Agree with you on that one. We have a couple more ideas from Manny. For example, I still think Eva Marie would be perfect winning Money in the Bank. She's a perfect heel.
She is a perfect heel.
I don't think she's going to be babyface.
No, she should be a heel. She should be managing a stable or one person. She's fantastic. She's got so much charisma in her look, but beyond that, no. It's what happened. It is okay for people to still be divas. It is okay for them not to be wrestling.
We actually made a video on this. It's on YouTube of about 5 days ago. Yeah, about the concept of divas and how feminism suggests or should suggest that you can be whatever the hell you want. And if you want to be the stereotypical diva, do it.
Yeah.
WWE needs that. It needs a variety. Random has also said, Marie said not too long ago she'd like one more run. Wouldn't mind it. Next match up, we have the SmackDown Women's Championship. That is Bianca Belair defending against someone she has competed against quite a number of times already, Bayley. Now, I know that you're a big Bayley fan. You did suggest that Bayley would be winning the Royal Rumble. That was a storyline that you had in your head that really could have panned out quite interestingly. Do you think she has any chance of taking this championship?
No, but this is going to be the best match of the night. It's going to be the best match for Bianca Belair, period. I mean, it might not be the best match in comparison to that Sasha Banks match, which I think was just brilliant. And I think Sasha Banks gave a lot to Bianca Belair in that match, almost too much, I would say. However, Bayley is picture perfect opponent for Bianca Belair at this point. I mean, she is just you couldn't have written it better, and she's been protected enough that when the win happens tonight, it will really matter. But you know what? Bayley is the Mick Foley to Steve Austin's first run as champion. She's going to be a solid first opponent that Belair will be able to overcome before maybe a second opponent, gets a quick win or whatnot, like it happened to Austin. But I think that's Bayley's intention. She's going to play the part perfectly.
Once again, we've talked a bit about the whole attribute of establishing a new person and a new champion. Bianca Belair doesn't need it as much as Rhea Ripley does because she's more established in front of the main roster. But Bayley is perfect for that because Bayley is the person who established her. That whole feud before Sasha Banks was the feud that Bianca Belair essentially stepped up onto to elevate her to the level where she could compete with Sasha Banks. So I do think Bayley is perfect for this. Jade Louise is here from TWM, says, I've just seen the notification of this and saw the state of wrestling journalism right in here. We'll be talking about wrestling journalism with the microcosm of the whole Bray Wyatt conversation that's been happening recently in the second half of this show, which begins in about 20 minutes. We are starting with our preview show for WrestleMania Backlash at the moment, but that will be coming in quite shortly. Now, I think Bianca Belair will essentially squash Bayley like a bug here, not actually squash as in a match that is a squash, but really Bayley is here as a nuisance. She's not necessarily here to be a challenger.
Right.
She's just another hurdle on the road. And it means that you can guarantee that Bianca Belair will be picking up wins as a fighting champion. We saw this with Drew McIntyre. They laid him up against opponent after opponent after opponent. Week-long feuds, month-long feuds. Very quickly, he ran out of challengers, but he was clearly a fighting champion. It really helped him, develop and display who he was. I definitely see that happening here. And I think we've been talking about it on on Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure, which is our weekly show over on PWTorch's VIP network, we've been talking about the idea of maybe Sasha Banks coming back for SummerSlam.
Right.
So I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, how about that guy chirping at me on Twitter? Like, how dare you leave Sasha Banks out of plan? Sasha Banks should be treated special. Honey, sit down.
You always get a few on Twitter who really jump in and go off on you.
Yeah,
and when
I
it
don't
comes to
know
Sasha
why.
Banks, there's more than a few.
Yeah, what is that? Like, chill.
People are very defensive of Sasha. I'm not entirely sure why.
Because they know how vulnerable she reads. She's great. I love her. No, I love her. But call a thing, Tom.
Eva Marie is definitely a conversation topic that's caught fire a little bit here. Ed is saying Eva is a perfect Sunny clone and clarifies by clone, I mean eye candy valet who might not wrestle. I can see
Ed's
that working.
Brilliant.
There is definitely a lot of room for that when it comes to the divisions and how they need to individually grow. Sort of independently of that, but still about Eva Marie. Manny say, Dave Meltzer says the plan is for her to be a motivational speaker and be babyface. Once she's back in front of fans in July, she's going to get booed out of the building. I simply cannot see Eva Marie being used as a babyface, especially when you consider she's been back 2 weeks for 2 weeks of vignettes. And while they can't boo her out the building, have you seen social media implode on this woman?
I don't think Dave Meltzer knows what he's talking about, if he really said that.
Dave, we always make sure to source.
Yeah, if that's a rumor. Here. Yeah, I was going to say, if that is really what he said, no.
But when it comes to spotting rumors and sourcing and checking your quotes and so on and so forth, we will be talking about that a little bit more later, because there is certainly at least one story in the past few weeks or the past week or so, which has been ascribed to so many different websites, but the source came from one person and one person alone, and it is not a person I trust. So we will be talking a little bit later about source tracking, as it were. Ed has brought up, as regards what Manny is saying about motivational speaking, Bo Dallas did this in NXT and was a heel the whole time. Did you watch much of Bo Dallas's run in NXT?
I mean, yeah, but it doesn't stick out to me. But I understand the reference, and I think that that's exactly what is going to be happening.
That's definitely what I see for Eva Marie as well. Random says the SmackDown Women's Division is doing okay. They just need to push the Riot Squad, and I just remembered Naomi for a push on Raw. Shame they aren't using them better.
I think those are the... Oh, God. I mean, I couldn't think of least people I'd be interested in or really the right people for this spot. I mean, come on.
One of the main reasons that Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure is so fun is because we have very different opinions. Very different.
Why? Because you look like you're one of the Riot Squads? That's why?
I'm wearing a Bray Wyatt t-shirt, man.
Yeah.
Looks
I'm talking
like
about the makeup. The eyeliner.
Okay, the makeup, yes, obviously. Obviously, with the makeup, I work very hard on my eyes. You know, they need to stand out behind the glasses.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
I can't have bags around my eyes. You know this. You know this. You use a special spray that gets rid of the bags. You're a pro.
And a spray tan.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're American. Noob says Bianca Belair really impressed everyone on the main roster and worked well with Sasha and Bayley. Ripley working with Asuka and Charlotte, not so much. I know that I'm a huge fan of Asuka, but Rhea's last few matches with Asuka is a mess. This is why Asuka versus Flair would have ended their feud at Mania 37. Do you agree with Noob there?
Yes and no. I just think that there was, even in how sloppy the Bianca Belair feud heading into WrestleMania was, there was still character development that I think was lacking over on Raw. I don't think that the quality of the performers is all that different. I just think it's how the shows are being produced at this point that is making the difference in the wrestlers' performances. So I think Rhea will get there. I do think that Belair seems special, and I think that's her stepping into her moment in a way that maybe Rhea is still finding herself. But it took Bianca a little bit longer. Like, she didn't just jump there. They didn't start at the exact same starting point. So let's give Ripley a little bit more time, but she'll find her way.
I agree with that. Bianca is a bit more established, and in addition to that, it's going to take time for these things to really kick on. What we've been shown, or what's been established for us on the main roster, if you don't watch NXT, if you just watch the main roster, Rhea Ripley is an established loser because she had one big chance at WrestleMania and she lost. That's the only real memory a lot of people have. Just to add to the previous conversation, Random says, I would love to see Eva have a bodyguard and let them do all the dirty work, kind of like she did with Nia in NXT. Just before asking this question, I find it very telling that most of the conversation so far in our WrestleMania Backlash preview has been about Eva Marie. That says to me the WWE did the right thing bringing her back, because she certainly did get everyone's attention. Do you have any comment to make on this one?
No, I actually think you're right about the bodyguard thing. I don't think it would have been an entirely bad idea to pair her with AJ Styles and Almost, if that were to be the case. I don't think that will be the case, given that they have the championships now, and that seems a little bit convoluted. But yes, is the answer, that there is an opportunity there. But I think she should be the valet. She should be the side piece. She should not be wrestling. And that even if she is a trained wrestler, even if she's excellent, there's still room for the sensational Sherrys, not the Sherry Martells. There's still room for the Miss Elizabeths. There's still room for that. And there's an audience for that too. And there's an audience for the Total Divas. There's an audience for the Real Housewives. Everybody, that's actually women's evolution, is when you have women being presented in various different capacities.
Completely agree with that. We have 2 matches left on the card. The first one I'll speak about might be the main event, but I suspect it won't be, and that is the Universal Championship match. Roman Reigns, our current Universal Champion and head of the table, will be defending against Cesaro. Daniel Bryan nowhere to be seen. Cesaro basically has to go it alone this time, with a Jey Uso in Roman's corner, with a Jimmy Uso who knows where in the background doing something or other. Nick, what have you made of the build towards this match first?
It's not about Cesaro at all. And Cesaro is fine and better off for being in this position. He's not damaged by being in it. He has been, I think the WWE's tried their best to protect him, make it a worthy match, even if you could have read the tea leaves along the way and said, we might not even get there. We have gotten there. He's got a championship opportunity. He will be, in one of the headline matches, which is the best place he's been since you can remember him being in, while he's been in WWE. I don't think he's really going to be all that much of a factor in the result of this match, except for having the 1, 2, 3 on his back. I don't think he's going to get a second main event match out of this. I think it's going to be pretty definitive in that, there is shenanigans involving the Usos on the outside, maybe Jimmy trying to stop Jey from interfering, or Jimmy even accidentally helping Reigns to win. Maybe that wouldn't even be his intent, but he does. And there's that flirting of, is he with him? Is he not? What's the plausible deniability here? Cesaro loses as a result of those shenanigans, is protected in that capacity, and then moves back down the card.
I agree pretty much wholeheartedly with everything you said there, apart from the idea that he moves back down the card. My reasoning being for that is that Roman Reigns feuds tend to go and go and go. Even the Daniel Bryan one, it technically started in mid-February and finished 2 weeks ago. You just sort of forget Edge was there, which, to be fair, I kind of have. Outside of that, Kevin Owens,
by the way, you and I were way ahead of the curve on that one. I still, to this day.
When it comes to Edge and the booking there, we really enjoy talking out that one on Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure, and I hope that anyone who does have PWTorch VIP looks forward to reading back or listening back on that one, because it wasn't too difficult to see what was coming, in our eyes at least, because fans turned on Edge pretty soon. I know he got the pop at WrestleMania, but that's a nostalgia pop if ever I've seen one, let's be fair. Outside of that, when it comes to this match with Cesaro, I agree there will be Jimmy and Jey Uso shenanigans. I think this isn't going to be about Cesaro at all. At all. I think Cesaro is the least important part. I think it's less important than Jey, less important than Jimmy, less important than Paul Heyman in the overall story being told, because the overall story being told is still Roman Reigns. I think what's going to happen is very similar to what you said. Jimmy Uso will somehow try and help Cesaro. Even the numbers against Jey, as it were, end up costing him. We'll then have a tag match in the coming weeks with Jimmy and Cesaro on one side and Roman, well, probably Seth and Jey on the other side, I actually suspect, building up to some sort of Jimmy versus Jey, building towards some sort of Jimmy versus Reigns. But I think Cesaro will get another chance at Money in the Bank, lose that one as well, a bit more clean. And then in July, Roman will bring Jimmy into the fold, ready for whatever happens at SummerSlam, which at the moment looks like it's going to be Seth. Do you think we'll see Seth Rollins tonight?
Yeah, I think he'll be on the show in some capacity, but I'm going to go back. No, I just don't think I don't see that as the timeline. I think it's Roman versus Jimmy at Money in the Bank.
Okay.
I think they're going to pull that trigger fast. I think Money in the Bank as a pay-per-view has its own identity. It's worth, what you would want out of it based on that title. If you're going to watch it, you're going to really watch it for the theme of that show.
Yeah.
And I think that because that's really what Hell in the Cell was when Roman went against Jay. So I think Cesaro, you talk about Roman Reigns. Let me adjust my chair over here. You talk about the Roman Reigns feuds being extended. Well, you know what extends them is the passion behind the performers. Kevin Owens made that feud extension. It wasn't pre-written that way. It wasn't pre-established that way. It was the passion within him. It was the spark that was in his performances. And I think Cesaro's been doing well enough, but this is not some spark. Come on, you know better.
When it comes to the feuds being extended, there is precedent for that. Jey Uso, in an interview with Pete Rosenberg, did say that after the first match, that was supposed to be the one and done. But I was going to say crowd reaction, but there's no crowd. The social media reaction, the fan reaction was so strong that they kept that going and had the Hell in a Cell match, which would have been something else. With this in mind, with those feuds continuing to go, who else would have actually been parachuted in? Because I don't think there's anyone really left at the top on SmackDown who could take on Roman, who could have slotted into there apart from maybe Shinsuke.
Cesaro, in replacement of Cesaro, you mean?
I mean that if the Kevin Owens feud continued
yes,
if it hadn't continued, who would have dropped in there?
Yes, if you will go back in time, about that gauntlet match. That would have been an opportunity for Shinsuke Nakamura. No one would have even really, really blinked at it. You could have even thrown in there Rey Mysterio at some point as a placeholder, and done head of the table versus head of the family. I mean, there were other opportunities in there. None of them groundbreaking necessarily, although I think Nakamura at that time still could come. But it was especially possible back earlier in this year. Or, depending on, the readiness for them to pull the trigger on it, Big E's an option. I still think Big E is going to be someone who ultimately is a real contender to beat Reigns.
And Ed certainly agrees, saying Nakamura, then maybe Big E. Now, Big E for me has been bogged down for a while in this particular feud of Apollo Crews. I'm enjoying a lot of the work that they do, but the drum match was not fun for me. The fact that it continues now, it's just, they've been having this feud since the dawn of time, and I am very much over it. We've seen these two in match after match after match. But my worry is what happens next for Big E if he doesn't get more matches with Apollo Crews. It seems very likely that we're going to see something set up tonight for the Intercontinental Championship. My hope would be 4 corners. Big E, Apollo Crews, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, because that just sounds like fun for me. But I suspect it might be something else, for example, Big E versus Baron Corbin, who's being rebuilt at the moment. Our main event, most likely, in my eyes, will be the WWE Championship match. The current champion is Bobby Lashley, and he will be defending against Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman. Nick, who have you got for this one?
This sucks.
Really? I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, I bet.
How dare you?
Who do I have? Well, Bobby Lashley, duh. He's not going to lose the championship. I think this is not good. This feels like we've hit, replay from last year's post WrestleMania world. And lady, that wasn't fun either. So this is, I just really struggle with this. I watched the ending of Raw and watched Braun Strowman running around in his early 2000s Tom Hardy wear or Ed Hardy wear, whatever that brand was. Oh God, it just looks like with the skinny jeans at the top cut. I mean, okay, that really fits. I don't think it's very good, and I also just think overall it's not becoming of Bobby Lashley. There were elements that they could have done to keep Bobby Lashley away from Drew McIntyre without having to add, to use your term, the spoiler into it, which really makes it just reduces everybody all the way around. And I even think, I think the hottest act right now on Raw is RK Bro. And I think if you were to come up with, I really do.
No,
If you were to have given Matt Riddle a one-off shot and had the intrigue of will Randy help him or not, or something along the lines. That would have been much more interesting than this, which, I think at this point, Braun Strowman is severely damaged. I don't even think he's a little damaged. I think he is so tied to really bad days of Raw past. And I think when I see him, I don't think he's any kind of threat other than to the quality of the product. And I don't think I'm not making a statement on his wrestling. I'm making a statement on what he represents. Yeah. Drew McIntyre has been so overly exposed. You called him a fighting champion. I would call him as just someone who has compromised way too much time on TV for the casual viewer to not feel annoyed by, or to not feel like, oh my God, enough of this guy. That is not good, and it is not good for a long-range plan for anything other than Bobby Lashley to say, keep the title on Lashley. He at least really looks the part. He looks like a fabulous champion. Literally, he just looks, the suits and the holding of the championship, everything aesthetically fits. Quality-wise, we are not there. It is time to truly move that out. And you may think I'm kidding, but I think it's time to let's pretend that the Retribution storyline never happened. Goodbye. And if we're not going to bring her business back, or even maybe have him just bring one Shelton Benjamin back as an assistant and leave Cedric to the side and have them be paired off against the RK Bro storyline, that would not be so bad for me.
I get what you're saying there. I definitely agree with the overexposure of Drew McIntyre. Even when he was out with COVID, he was still featured more heavily than most of the roster.
Right.
And for me, Drew McIntyre either needs to move or take a bit of a break. Either way, move away from the championship for a little bit. But we're seeing WrestleVotes earlier on today posting saying that they're looking at new blood in the Raw title picture in the main event scene because they're struggling to find people. Mm-hmm. So there are ideas of maybe bringing people over from SmackDown. Aleister Black's name was mentioned. I think Kevin Owens could be a good shout in that. There's also the possibility of Drew McIntyre taking on Jinder Mahal, who seems to be getting a bit of a push again.
Yep.
Or at least has reappeared and could easily step into that. So I do think Drew's going to drop down the card a little bit, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. As regards Braun Strowman, Michael says Braun peaked, and I don't disagree with you whatsoever there.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you.
I wasn't the biggest fan of his feud with Bray, which lasted all of the early part of last year. After that, I'm really not sure what he's actually done. I'm honestly trying to think of what he's actually done, but I think, as Ed says, Braun has been crushed since the Swamp fight.
Way before.
The fact that he was parachuted in last second to take on Goldberg when he had no plans beforehand was really quite telling about their faith in him for me. Firstly, yeah, he's going to be a champion, but they didn't have anything for him before that. It seemed like an absolute emergency button, a proper audible called. A real audible. Right. Leo is here. Thank you and welcome, Leon, saying we will see a new WWE champion, but doesn't say who. Personally, I do not think that is going to be the case. I think Bobby Lashley will be retaining the championship. I think Braun is just there to act as that spoiler, and I think Drew will be moving on to other things. Tom, we may see another one-on-one Lashley and Braun, but I'm not entirely sure.
Tom, I just got a note. I have a little bit more time if you need me. What I was going to say is what I think you have hit on the head is the Jinder Mahal issue. And I say issue in that that is one to watch. I mean, in terms of having him fast-tracked very quickly to the championship scene. And if not the championship scene, at least the Drew McIntyre scene. So that is certainly, I just think he needs a new finisher. It really does. That Colossus or whatever, it's just so weak, and no. But he looks great. I mean, there's no questions about that. I mean, a total star.
Michael says, I feel like Braun was mainly liked because of his feud with Roman, but more so because everyone hated Roman. Now, this started around the same time I started at PWTorch, and I remember saying at some point that Roman Reigns had accidentally turned Braun Strowman face. Because of how Braun Strowman just attacked Roman, flipped over an ambulance with him in. And despite being the heel in that storyline, it really got Braun Strowman over. Do you think that was the peak for Braun?
Yes and no. Yes, I think that if there was a peak, that was the time. The damage that has happened to Braun is a combination of things. It was the feats of strength getting way too comical and way too cute by half. Yeah. It was his outside of the ring political views and the mechanisms of his social media pages. It was in general a sameness that was feeling about every match that he was in, and it was just him showing out and then not having a whole lot more beyond that to exist. And, that land of just the big men running around on Raw and SmackDown, I mean, that got old to people a long time ago.
And that is essentially what we have on Raw right now, particularly with this triple threat. We're going to go for another 5 minutes or so before we wrap up. So any questions you have, please get them in now. Before we will be moving on to Nothing on YouTube, I will be hosting the second half of this show solely on Twitch, where we'll talk about a lot of wrestling news and preview SmackDown for tonight. We'll also be raiding Love Wrestling tonight because Ella J, who appeared on the second night Wrestlemania preview, is being interviewed by Spencer Love tonight. So I definitely want to be sending some people that way, if at all possible. Ed is suggesting the idea of Bobby Lashley versus Kofi Kingston post Backlash. Now, speaking for myself, I definitely can't see this because Raw is the land of giants. And as much as I feel that Kofi Kingston was a legitimate main eventer during his time as WWE champion, that time was a long time ago. And the WWE have given no hint whatsoever that they have any intention of bringing him back there. Nick, do you disagree with
that? Yes, I know I agree with you, but the only thing I don't disagree that it's not something that should be thought of at least a little bit to say, maybe we can recapture some of that magic. I think that'd be a good feud.
I think it could definitely work, but it really depends. Bobby Lashley's been built to be incredibly strong.
Right.
Incredibly strong. And I just don't feel that Kofi's been taken seriously for a long time. I would like to see, if we do move people over, let's say, for example, we do move some people over to feud with Bobby Lashley at the top level. I'd like to see Owens. I'd like to see Big E because I think Big E is a better fit physically for Bobby Lashley, certainly more of a competitor. But Kofi Kingston certainly could play the underdog. It depends. If we see Daniel Bryan come back to WWE, I think he'll be immediately thrown against Bobby Lashley. But other than that, I don't think there's many people in the mid-card maybe, other than, Sheamus, for example. But we've already seen that. We've already seen pretty much everyone get beaten up by Bobby Lashley. And Raw are doing themselves a real problem lately with how quickly they've been running through certain competitors and not saving them for pay-per-views. Leo is asking what is happening with Seth and Roman. Do you believe that the main event of SummerSlam will be Seth versus Roman, as has been speculated on social media recently?
I was thinking about this on the car ride home today. It would appear to be. I think it could be an even slower burn, though. So, I mean, we could be looking further down, Survivor Series, something in that, Hell in the Cell type time of year. I still think it's entirely possible that we get a run of Randy Orton over on SmackDown as someone who would go up against Roman Reigns. I think the characters are there. I think that chemistry seems to fit a lot more than Edge would be in that role. And I'm not saying that Randy is winding down his career, but let's get it in while we can. And I feel like the characters with this level of definition, with this level of investment, probably would be a good time for that. So I don't know if Randy is going to make a show change, but I've always thought that was an entirely possibility at any point within the year. Barring that change, sure, Seth Roman, that seems obvious. Who's the face, though?
It's a fair question. It'll take a while to sort of undo the damage that Seth has done to any belief that he could ever be a face with what's been happening recently. Noob has asked a question. Will Asuka take some time off from TV? Noob believes she needs 6 months off so she can get her teeth fixed. They seem fine to me. I don't know what she's had done in that regard. And that'll give some time for live fans return, enough time for Rhea and Charlotte to deal with their own storylines. Do you see Asuka taking some time off, or do you think Raw need her at the moment?
I do. I think she should take the time off. I think it'd be very, very helpful for her.
I think there's a number of different wrestlers at the moment who could benefit from a bit of time off. We've mentioned Drew McIntyre, for example. I think there are a few people who could benefit because of that overexposure. Yep. Somehow, Raw and SmackDown have both become really small rosters. Pretty much out of nowhere.
Yep.
It's so strange. And Leo is saying, can we see Jimmy and Jay leave Roman? Personally, no. I don't see that happening for a long time.
Yeah, not Jay at least. Not Jay.
Not Jay at least. Not Jay. Jimmy for me will be working independently for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, but will come back into the fold pretty quickly. We are going to wrap up this preview show and say a big thank you to everyone who has joined us. Everything Pro Wrestling is here. Hey, Conrad, how are you doing? Say hi to Nick as well. This is Conrad of Everything Pro Wrestling, who works here on YouTube and delivers a lot of fine quality programming. We will be continuing this show in just a couple of minutes, solely over on Twitch, where we'll be talking about a lot of different things. If I get up my list, we will be talking about the news that Zelina Vega may be returning to WWE. Bayley confirming any hopes of Becky returning at Mania was wishful thinking, in her words, and the whole conversation that wrestling journalism has had recently about Bray Wyatt. I'll also be asking a few questions, for example, trying to say where Edge is, because a lot of people have been asking me that recently, and we've talked about it on Nick and Tom's, but I don't think I've really talked about it on the Twitch. Just before we go, Michael says, have a good one, Nick. Thanks for joining the stream.
Thank you, Michael.
And I'm sure we'll see Nick again. He has joined the Discord as well, so we may get the opportunity to get to know him a little bit better there. We will be seeing more of him in future, I am sure. For now, though, we are going to wrap up. And as usual, Nick, where can we find you on social media?
At Nicholas Barbati, NichOlasBarbati.
And we will be back on Twitch in about 5 minutes over at twitch.tv/Tom Colahue. Follow over there if you haven't already. If you're watching on YouTube or on Periscope, jump on over there. It will be just me, but we will be talking about everything that goes on in the world of pro wrestling. Ed's trying to stir some trouble for one last question. Nick, what do you enjoy about working with Tom?
I mean, now that you mention it,
And I think we'll leave him to think about that one. Maybe we'll get.
Well, there was that one thing that you do, but no, that got annoying.
Oh, we're not supposed to talk about that.
No, and then there was that other time that but you wouldn't shut up about that either. No, honestly,
She's really good though.
Who?
She's really good.
Oh well, that's not what the review says.
Sure. We'll see you all on Twitch in just a moment.